The Sun Devils were flat out disrespected in the Big 12's preseason poll.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcast. Stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll call it as it is. ASU football has been disrespected, which is crazy because you're coming off back-to-back 3-win seasons. But you look at the moves that they've made. You look at the development from their first 3-win season to their second, from the Herm Edwards end of that era to the beginning of the Kenny Dillingham era. Is a different team. It's a very literal different team in terms of the players that are there. It's also a different team from a head coaching standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, period. And it's a different team from a philosophy standpoint. The Sun Devils are better than they were a year ago, and they're 10 times better than they were 2 years ago. And yet, the Sun Devils in the official Big 12 preseason poll placed last. 16th of the 16 teams in the Big 12. They placed ASU last. For what it's worth, I got the vote on this poll. I did not put ASU super high because you had to be realistic, but I didn't put them last, that's for sure. This has them last. It has them behind Colorado, Baylor, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston. All teams ASU can beat this year. The only one they won't get their shot at is Baylor, or you know what? They don't play Houston either. They will get their shot at 3 of those teams and should be able to win those 3 games. This is a better ASU team than anybody is giving them credit for. So why on earth are they ranked so low? Why are they being projected to finish the worst team in the Big 12? It's beyond me. And look, I understand back-to-back 3-win seasons. That's going to give a lot of fatigue for people. I also understand that you lost 3 of your best players. Jaden Rashada, Elijhah Badger, BJ Green. All gone. All 3 of them have potential to be all-conference players at some point in their careers. It's a lot. I get it. I understand the logic. But with that being said, there is a lot more good here than there is bad at Arizona State. First of all, you have continuity. Kenny Dillingham is back. Kenny Dillingham also brought Brian Ward back as the defensive coordinator. They got a new offensive coordinator with Marcus Arroyo, who should be an upgrade over what the team had last year with Bo Baldwin. You have to replace your number 1 quarterback. That's fine. You bring in Sam Levitt, equally rated as highly in the recruiting cycle last year with Rashada. Beat him out in spring ball. Should be fine there. Elijhah Badger's gone. Number 1 receiver. You got like 5 receivers who can inherit big roles on the team. Are any of them Elijhah Badger? No, probably not. But there's still enough there for you to get by. You lose BJ Green. Well, guess what? Prince Norma and Clayton Smith are back. So your 3 big losses, you had plans on how to replace them. You had successor options. You should be able to keep humming. So you lose those guys. But there's a lot of guys that you're adding to. Jordan Tyson is healthy. Jordan Tyson is the number 1 receiver on this team. Jordan Tyson is somebody that I think can be a massive breakout for the Sun Devils this year. We'll talk about him more at the end of the podcast. Jake Smith is back after having to sit out last year for two-time transfer eligibility policy from the NCAA. He's back. He could be a number 1 receiver. I think at worst he's number 3, and he's a very, very good number 3. Raleek Brown and Alton McCaskill were added through the transfer portal to buff a running back room that already had Cam Scanaboo, Kyson Brown, and I almost said DeForest Buckner. That's not right. The Carlos Brooks. You're also adding a talented recruiting class that includes 4-star running back Jason Brown and 4-star tight end Jaden Fortier. That's huge. You also beefed up your offensive line, brought back some of your better players like Lee Fotanu. You've got a healthy Ben Coleman. Hopefully Bram Walden can get healthy. You bring in Jalen Clem. There's so many guys on the offensive line there. You have Cam Scanaboo coming back, who, for all intents and purposes, is probably the best player on offense until further notice. The offense is fine. The offense is good. They should be leaps and bounds ahead of where they were last year. Defensively, this is a good defense last year. Sure, you look at like actual numbers, and it's not the best in the world. I know they were right in the middle of the pack of the Pac-12, or in the lower half of the Pac-12 in like passing yards, rushing yards, points per game, stuff like that. They played great football. They were just they were left high and dry by the offense last year. But you bring back some of your most important players. I already mentioned Clayton Smith and Prince Dorba are back, bookend edge rushers. Those two combined for 10.5 sacks last year. Prince Dorma dominated the first half of the year, and Clayton Smith dominated the second half of the year. You get those two together and clicking, you should be able to easily match 10.5 sacks once again. I would venture to say you're going to be closer to 15 sacks between the two of them. Maybe more than that. It's a dynamic duo. You got good depth along the defensive line. CJ Fight is back. You add Jeff Clark. There's a lot of reinforcements that came to the defensive line. You have depth at linebacker. You bring in Keyshawn Elliott, Cyrus Fiaseu, and Jordan Crook. You still return Caleb McCullough and Tate Romney and Kavian Thunderbird. In the secondary, there's some high upside players back there. You added, just through the transfer portal, LT Welsh, your number 1 corner, Javen Robinson, likely your number 2 corner, Kamari Wilson, who will compete for a starting safety spot, and Miles Rouser, who will compete for a starting safety spot. Those guys are joining Xavion Alford, who is returning from the 2-time eligibility, sitting out. You are returning Shamari Simmons. You have some of your younger guys are back as well. Cole Martin, another guy who got added through the transfer portal, is going to be your starting slot corner. You've got lots of incoming freshmen too. Tony Lewis and Kuba, Chris Johnson Jr. Oh my God, of course I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'll get back to it because it's going to pop in my head while I'm talking. But there's Rodney Bimage. There you go. There's a lot of guys that are coming through. Plas Johnson. There's a lot of guys that are coming in this recruiting class that are going to bulk up the secondary. That was pretty damn good last year. This is a team that pound for pound has gotten better from where they were a year ago. I get it. You lose 3 marquee players. You have depth. If you were going to lose 3 marquee players, besides Rashada, you lost them at positions you could afford. Losing Elijhah Badger, you still have Jordan Tyson. I almost said Raleek Brown, Troy O'Mary, Jake Smith, Melcon Stovall, Caleb Black, Corbin Hendricks. There are guys there. Zachariah Sample is coming in. You lose BJ Green at edge rusher. You still have Clayton Smith. You have Prince Dorval. You got a host of young guys as well. Losing Rashada hurt, but you only saw him play for 3 games last year, and he got beat out in spring ball. I'm not saying that Sam Levitt's about to become some all-conference player, but what I am saying is it's not like ASU is replacing their quarterback with Richie Bradshaw. They've got a guy back there, a capable guy, a talented guy. There was a plan at quarterback, and Trenton Bourguet is back. Sure, he may not be like a superstar, but he's a very valuable piece to your offense. He's a very valuable piece to your team. You have a plan at quarterback in a worst case scenario. In a worst case scenario, you get average play out of Sam Levitt. He comes out 2,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. You know what? You take it because that ground game should be dynamite. With Scattaboo, Brown, McCaskill, Jason Brown, Kyson Brown, DeCarlos Brooks, you should be able to run for 2,000 yards, 3,000 yards, whatever. They're going to dominate on the ground. You get average play from your quarterback, you'll be fine. Defensively, they're going to slug guys in the face. Like, there's not going to be very many games where they're going to be outmatched defensively. This is top to bottom a very, very deep group. It's deep on the edge. It's deep on the defensive line. It's deep at linebacker. It's deep at corner. It's insanely deep at safety. There's a lot of good things that are going on in this defense. You should hopefully have some more luck on special teams. We'll wait and see how that ends up shaking out. You've got answers for your holes. And again, you're bringing back Ryan Ward, you're bringing back Kenny Dillingham, and you hopefully have a better offensive coordinator in Marcus Royal. There's no reason for you not to go bowling this year. There's no reason to not be at least a 6-6 football team. If you're 5-7, that sucks. It's progression, but the closer we get to the season, the more I am in the mindset of this needs to be a 6-6 football team. It starts with this podcast. It's probably going to continue moving forward with having that kind of logic. This is a talented football team. And again, I'm here to tell you they are going to be closer to 6-6 than they are a third straight 3-9 season. This is not a bad Sun Devils team. In fact, we're going to go ahead and transition to where I think they're going to end the year after being ranked so low. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Game Time is an authorized market ticket place for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Save up to 60% on buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. You can save even more with exclusive flash deals on the app and select seats ahead of the game or event. Zone deals means that you can choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. All-in pricing is a feature that you toggle so that you can see the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, and their lowest price guarantee means that Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. And of course, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Wherever you're getting those podcasts, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Back into our conversation, we're going to take a look at where I think ASU will end the year. Let's start nice and easy. Not last. ASU is not finishing last in the Big 12. Put a stamp on it. I will shave my beard if ASU finishes last in the Big 12. 100% will shave my beard. It's not happening. ASU is a much better football team than they were a year ago. And sure, I can't necessarily speak on behalf of Houston or Cincinnati or BYU or Baylor or Colorado. I don't know them the way that the experts do. But what I do know is ASU is more than capable of beating those teams. This is not a Sun Devils team that's going to get punked the way they did last year by Colorado. This is not a team that's going to get punked by BYU like they were a couple of years ago. ASU is a much better football team than they have been previously. They're much better coached. This is a team that you know is going to give 110% on every single down. This is a great team. This is a great Sun Devils team compared to what we've seen. Is it Rose Bowl caliber? No. Of course not. Is it playoff caliber? No, of course not. But it is, compared to what we've seen, it's a great football team. And it is a team that is going to be much better than the expectations that have now been placed on it. You tell me to look right now, they're better than Houston, they're better than Cincy, they're better than BYU, they're better than Baylor, they're better than Colorado. Yes, they're better than Colorado. Put it in your blog if you disagree. They are better than Colorado. Arizona State Sun Devils football is better than Colorado Buffaloes football. Is what it is, people. That would move ASU all the way up to the 11 spot. That's realistic. That is realistic for Arizona State. Look at the next teams. TCU, Texas Tech, UCF. I think you're right in that ballpark. I think UCF is going to be tough because of KJ Jefferson. I know Texas Tech has a really good recruiting class. TCU is very well coached by the guy, Sonny Dykes. They are 3 football teams that I think you're going to be measuring up against by the end of the year. Then you have the top half. West Virginia is really good. Iowa State's really good. Arizona's really good. Kansas is really good. Oklahoma State is borderline elite. K-State is borderline elite. Utah is elite. ASU is going to have some measuring stick games throughout the year. They play UCF. They play Texas Tech. They play West Virginia. They play Arizona, Kansas and Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Utah. This is a daunting schedule, but this is the year where you're going to be looking to establish yourself as a threat in the Big 12 moving forward. You don't want to come out this year and be flat. You don't want to be a football team that is unable to stack up with some of the better teams in the conference. This is not the time to do that. This is year one. This is, hey, who are the teams to watch? And Arizona State should be one of the teams to watch. Asking me to pick off the top of my head. Utah, I don't think you win that game. K-State, I don't think you win that game. Oklahoma State, I think it's winnable. Kansas, winnable. Arizona, winnable. West Virginia, that's really tough. I would call it winnable, but I don't know, man. West Virginia's tough. UCF, you got to go to Orlando. I don't know. Texas Tech, that'll be a good game too. BYU, you beat them. Cincinnati, you beat them. There are plenty of teams here that you should be able to be in dogfights with. There's a couple of teams that I don't think you stand a chance. But most of the teams in the Big 12, if ASU takes the step forward that I am anticipating to, and a lot of other people are anticipating them to, they're going to finish much better than we think. There's a chance they finish in the top half of the Big 12. Seriously, I mean it. They can finish in the top half of the Big 12. They can be better than Houston, Cincy, BYU, Baylor, Colorado, for sure. They could beat out TCU, Texas Tech, UCF. That puts them at 8. And then West Virginia, Iowa State, those are tough teams. ASU can finish so much higher than people realize, than they are given credit for. 16? You're ranking ASU 16th in the Big 12. That is so beyond disrespectful. It's unbelievable that got put out. It's mind-boggling to me that an ASU team that is so much definitively better than they were a year ago or 2 years ago is being ranked this low. I don't get it. But again, you should be able to finish better than where you were a year ago. You should be able to really beat up on teams that you're supposed to beat up on. BYU, Houston. You should be able, or not Houston, Cincinnati. You should be able to beat them up. You should have close games with West Virginia and with Texas Tech. You should be able to UCF in there as well. And there's a chance that you can get an upset or two. You're taking the cutback this year, 100%. Put a stamp on it. Although, for what it's worth, I take ASU every year to get that. I don't care if Arizona is 11-0 and Arizona State is 0-11 going into that game. I'm taking ASU. But they're getting the cutback this year. Depending on Kansas, you could compete with Kansas. Oklahoma State, it's in Stillwater. I won't call it impossible. I will call it improbable, though. K-State, you're not winning that game. You got to go to Manhattan in mid-November. It's not happening. Utah, you're going to be home, but they are one of the best teams in the country. I don't think you're winning that game. There are more games on here that feel winnable than games that are definitively losses. I see 2 definitive losses. I see 4 to 5 probable losses. And the rest of the schedule is very winnable. You also have a chance to start the year 3-0 in out-of-conference play. You play Wyoming, you play Mississippi State, and you play Texas State. Mississippi State's not going to be a great team this year. Wyoming and Texas State, you should be able to beat them up. 3-0 going into conference play, you're only looking for 3 wins at that point. And guess what? Cincinnati and BYU are 2 of those wins. Now you just got to find one more win to be bowl eligible, whether that's getting the cutback or a statement win against Utah, K-State, Oklahoma State, Kansas. Maybe you can beat UCF or West Virginia. There is so much potential here for Arizona State to be a 6-win football team this year. It's almost like I don't know if anything less is acceptable. 5-7, like I said, that's probably the realistic, I suppose, but this should be at worst a 6-6 football team. ASU should be going bowling this year. We're going to end the show in just a moment. We're going to talk about some players that I think could end up being all conference players by the end of the year because, spoiler alert, the Sun Devils didn't have any players listed on the all conference team for the Big 12 preseason list. We're going to talk about it in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. One more time, wherever you get your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Let's go ahead and round out our conversation now with players that I think should be able to compete for all conference list by the end of the season. I'm not saying that they're all going to. I just think that you're in a much better situation to do so than you were previously. This is a good Sun Devils team, man. It's much better than anyone is willing to give them credit for. And that means that you're going to have guys that can step up. I have listed here 2, 4, 6, 8 players who will compete. Are all 8 of them going to hit? No, probably not. I may not get any of them right, and it could be someone else. But to me, these are the 8 players who should be able to be in that conversation by the end of the year. We'll start with the running backs. I got Cameron Scannaboo and I got Elijhah Brown. Looking at the Big 12 conference, you had Ollie Gordon and Taj Brooks make the list. Ollie Gordon was a consensus. Every single voter, including yours truly, put Ollie Gordon on there. No doubt. Second running back, Taj Brooks. He's a beast at Texas Tech. I put him on my vote. Cameron Scannaboo is right there with the rest of the running backs in this conference. He is as talented a player as you're going to find. As a runner, as a pass catcher, as a Mr. Do-It-All. He's the people's running back, ladies and gentlemen. He is the people's running back. Elijhah Brown, super high upside player. We're going to talk tomorrow about Elijhah Brown when we predict his stats. And one of the questions I have is he the highest upside player on the Sun Devils football team? Because he just might be. With the pure amount of talent, athleticism, and explosiveness that he has. Elijhah Brown can be one of the best players in the Big 12. He could end up being one of the all-conference players, whether that's as a running back or who knows, maybe he ends up dominating as a kick punt returner and gets himself onto that list. You've also got another weapon on offense that I've got for the wide receiver spot in Jordan Tyson. There are 4 receivers who made the list for the preseason team. You had T. McMillan, Kobe Hudson from UCF. We all know who T. McMillan is, by the way. Jaden Higgins from Iowa State and Brennan Presley from Oklahoma State. Jordan Tyson is another super high upside player, somebody who I've gotten to see in person at 100% health. We've seen what he can do when he is healthy, he could be one of the biggest breakout sleepers in the Big 12. If I had to make a sleeper list across the Big 12, Jordan Tyson would be on there. He is poised for a massive breakout year. Now that he's 100% healthy, confident, and in an offense that will be able to unlock his maximum potential. It's going to be huge this year. There's going to be fireworks. And don't get me wrong, this is a really good conference for wide receivers. This is a really good conference for wide receivers. But with that being said, I still believe that there is a chance for Jordan Tyson to end up being one of the more underrated guys at the wide receiver spot. I also think that Lee Futanu can be one of the guys at the center spot. He was really good for ASU last year. He's going to be commanding another offensive line that's going through a lot of changes with guys returning from injury, guys who are coming in through the transfer portal, guys that are coming in as true freshmen. He's going to be the forefront. He's going to be calling things out. But I do have faith in Lee Futanu to be the guy at the center spot. Defensively, it's not going to come as a surprise that I say Clayton Smith and Prince Dorbah. I voted for Clayton Smith on mine. Prince Dorbah received a handful of votes as well. They combined for 10.5 sacks last year. I already said earlier, they should be able to combine for no less than 10. They're going to compete for 15. These two are studs. These two are next level players, by the way. They should be able to absolutely explode this year. If they can string together full seasons, because again, Prince Dorbah dominated the first half, Clayton Smith dominated the second half. They do that for 12 games, 13 games. You got something special with those two. They are absolutely going to be one of the better pass rushing duos in the Big 12. One of them on an all-conference team would not surprise me one bit. LT Welsh in the secondary. I think that he's going to be asked to be Rotorrance, and that's tough. It's not an easy task for anyone to step into that role as the number one corner, as a very good number one corner for your team. But nonetheless, LT has looked very good in practices. He is a former super duper high 4-star player. The talent is there. He played at LSU. They don't recruit just anybody to play in their secondary. Just because he didn't get on the field doesn't mean he wasn't talented enough to get to Baton Rouge. He is as high an upside defensive back as anybody else on this team, which leads me to my last guy, Xavier Alford. Call me biased. I can absolutely admit it. Xavier is a friend of the podcast. He's been on here twice. Check out his most recent sit down with me if you have not already. It's in the player interviews tab on the YouTube channel. But Xavier is a beast. He blew me away last year during spring ball before he was ruled ineligible by the NCAA. He has blown me away once again with his play during spring ball. He's a very impressive young man with a good resume. He puts it together in training camp like I expect him to. He's going to dominate. He's going to give ASU a true ball hawk in the secondary. Somebody that's going to fly around and find the football wherever he is. Be a magnet to the football. He's a beast. He's a stud. I would not be surprised if he led ASU in interceptions. Now, I'm not saying that's a lot. It could be 3. It could be 7. My money would be on Xavier Alford. You know what? I'm adding a 9th player here. I really am. Cole Martin. He's such a good nickel defender, and he's going to inherit the Jordan Clark role for the team. There's 5 defensive backs who end up making the all-conference team. Cole Martin's going to be right there, man. That is a good football player. If he ends up doing what he did at Oregon last year, where he was a stud nickel, then he's going to make the list. If he improves on that, he is guaranteed to be on that list. Cole Martin, absolutely one of the best guys in the secondary. I have 9 players who will flirt with it. I will be happy with 1. Not all 9 of them are going to make it, more than likely. Not unless ASU is 12-0, which maybe they are. Who knows? All I know at the end of the day is ASU was flat out disrespected in the Big 12 preseason poll. And I want to know what you guys think. Are you of the opinion they got it right? Or are you with me and ready to get a pitchfork and light a torch and stomp down to wherever the Big 12 headquarters is? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrads36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you get your podcast, though, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and be updated whenever we get a new episode. I also want to bring attention to the subscriber count. As of today, we are at 803 subscribers. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the start of the 2024 season. So if you have not subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button. I would love to get to that point. Like I said, we will be back again tomorrow to talk about Raleek Brown, predict his stats, the highs, the lows, my personal predictions, and we answer the question, is Raleek Brown going to be the most explosive player on the Sun Devils this year? We'll talk about it tomorrow, and I'll see you then. Till then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.